This week, we've got a demo courtesy of Eonlake of the Cherry Audio PS3300. It's an exactingly faithful virtual analog emulation of the colossal and ultra-rare semi-modular analog polyphonic synthesizer. That's a lot. Released by Korg in 1977. Cherry Audio has pulled out all the stops to accurately recreate and update this mythical monster synth from its massive stacked sonic character and signature multiple resonator sweeps. So Eonlake, you got it. I think you got it like the day it came out, right?
Yeah, target audience. So there was a while ago I became aware of the PS-3300 just from hearing somebody playing an old one. I thought that sounds amazing. It's like my MS-20 but polyphonic, and it actually predates the MS-20. All of these do actually. It's kind of went on the wish list then I saw there was a bigger one, which is this one, the 3300, which is just, I'll go into quite how silly it is in a minute. And yeah, $50 for a virtual one. I thought I had to, really. It's kind of like a dream synth for me. It's a monster. It has 48, well, it had 48 note polyphony, as you said, but that's in one of the three synthesizer blocks. There are three blocks in it, and then there's like a main mixer and amplification block and like control unit. So it's kind of like three 48 voice analog polysynths in one unit.
Can you show us what this looks and sounds like?
Yeah, let's share a bit of desktop. So we're having a look at a regular sort of Ableton Live session, and dominating most of the screen is this VST, which is a pop-up window. So what we've got here is, if you see, there are four large containers in this case. And you've got your little keyboard at the bottom, but this is it here. So the first three of these are your first three, I would call them a synthesizer block. They're subdivided in the usual sort of white blocks that Korg use to just show you purpose, almost like a modular. It's a semi-modular synth. There are something like 67 patch points on the front of it.
Wow.
And so let's look at one here. We've got an individual voice signal generators, the old name for oscillators, basically, noise sources. So we've got the triangle saw, rectangle, then we've got a narrower rectangle with pulse width modulation on the last of the three settings for different pulse widths. When you've got a slight frequency adjust so that you can detune them in relation to any of the other ones. You've got your usual scale settings and envelope modulations, whether or not the keyboard filter is balanced. You've got a low pass filter. It's subtractive synthesis, of course, so it's just your standard analog subtractive synthesis. I believe Bob Moog once called this the best synthesizer for fat sounds. So that's from the horse.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear what it sounds like.
Got your modulation stuff at the bottom here. I'll just go over the architecture just quickly. So you've got a little bit of modulation at the bottom, and then it all repeats over here. On the right hand side, you've got three outputs. You can pan each of these synthesizer voices or blocks, left, right, center, whatever you feel like doing. You've got relative volumes for each one. And then you've actually got, some effects that they've added in here for chorus, echo, and reverb. There's a limiter on the master out. There's a lot of stuff to play with. But essentially, each one of these is fully polyphonic, and there are three of them. And I've put a few of them in this arrangement so that we can have a listen to some sounds. See how that is. It's got, look at this. Look at all these patches.
Yeah.
So these are all your sections here: basses, bells, brass keys, leads, legacy, which does very much what you think it would, modulations, which gets crazy, pads, which is a good variety, flux, poly, sound effects, and strings.
A whole section of strings. A whole section of strings. That's my kind of synth.
That's just for £50.
Yeah.
$50, right? It's just $50. That's insane. That's an insane.
Go up to 80, I think, in a bit.
From what you've seen, are there any limitations in it?
Not many. They depend on you, I think. It's what you can get out of it. I mean, obviously, it comes with a lot of presets. I think this will be a synth you will see preset packs released for. So that can take some of the hassle out of it. not into virtual patching and building sounds yourself, but really it's got a lot of ability. It all MIDI syncs and everything, so all of your echoes and everything all can be beat synced. Your oscillators can be beat synced and all the rest of it. It's not really big on limitations, to be fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with what it offers, you would think it's not big on limitations. I'm curious to hear though, does it meet everything you expected out of it to be, considering that you were saying this was kind of like a dream synth for you and all that? How do you feel about it? Is it doing everything you want from it?
It's pretty early doors, to be honest. I mean, I was sitting here trying to think of what sounds should we play, because there are a lot of good sounds in it that you toggle through and think, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. And I'm not used to actually building, putting the same thing on here. It's a bit heavy on the CPU, I will say, if you run 5 or 6 of them. But
I mean, yeah, if you need 548 voices.
Like, imagine that back in the day, you had 5 of them, 5 hardwares in the studio. Be like,
550.
Keyboards only so long if you're going to lie on it. You need 4 or 5 of them to lie on them end to end.
I mean, for 50 quid for a little bit of what's the phrase? For a little bit of semi-modular stuff where you're kind of making things work. Yeah. I remember picking up the MS-20 and taking that home for the weekend, and that was, I think, was the most fun I had in a long time. So I can see this being similar, even though it is virtual.
Tonality to it. It is a little bit gnarly like that, but also it can cover some very smooth areas as well, because the amount of layering and modulation you can do with that number of voices, it can make it sound quite lush as well. And also the fact, I mean, I didn't put any additional processing, any echoes and reverbs were actually inbuilt on the synth itself. I didn't want to actually dolly it up or anything, so that's all what it actually sounds like.
Yeah, you didn't color it anyway with other effects and stuff. I like that. Yeah. And Cherry Audio usually has really good built-in effects too, so it's not surprising. Yeah,
I mean, I've not even started to plumb the depths of this and look at automating some of the parameters as well for each of these voices, and the way that might affect the patch based on how it's panned, or
I just thought, of course, you could take that through, and you could put that through modern processing and do LFOs and automate everything within that. Then you got
imagine taking something like this with this amount of features and controls and going, right, I'm going to stack a load of LFOs on top of the unit and start attaching them to all these parameters. But of course, that's exactly what you can do in software now. So, and while one of these would cost about $100,000 now, if anyone was silly enough to sell one, I can have 5 of them and stack them up.
I can just do a stress test. Well, yeah, I'd be curious to see what you guys listening in the chat. What do you think of it? Is it something that you do? It's $50 right now, going up to $69 or $79. Is it something that you would purchase? Let us know. Thank you very much, Eonlake, for a wonderful demonstration of what is a lovely synthesizer.
Yeah, and what I would say in the end is, with anything that has virtual patching and so on, the benefit is, unlike in the real world, you get total recall and you can just store all your patches and flip between them. If it were a real one, you'd have to patch it up every time and change every knob. The ability to just bring it back as it was is pretty huge.